New Mexico, a land that bakes under the desert sun and cools under endless skies at night. In Albuquerque, the heat isn't always extreme, but it's steady, dry, sharp, and draining. The sidewalks get hot enough to burn. The nights turn cold without warning. For tourists, it's part of the Southwest charm. But for people without a home, the weather is something else entirely. With no shade in the summer and no warmth in the winter, every day outside feels like a slow fight. Skin cracks, lips dry, water runs out fast, and when shelter is full or too far to reach, many are left to sleep wherever they can, in tents, under bridges, or behind empty buildings. In Albuquerque, the desert doesn't scream. It wears you down, little by little, until your body gives up before your spirit does.
What made you get back in it?
I came here,
Just Albuquerque?
Albuquerque, and the shit that I've been put through here.
Oh, what's the main thing you think that will help you right now?
Leaving here.
Just leaving, for starters?
Yeah, but it's
Being
not
around positive people?
It's not that easy. When you're addicted and you get sick, you get way sicker than heroin.
1. The current state of homelessness in Albuquerque. Homelessness in Albuquerque has become a serious problem, and it's getting worse every year. If you walk through the city today, you'll see tents under bridges, people sleeping on sidewalks, and others just wandering with nowhere to go. It's no longer something happening in the shadows. It's right in front of everyone now. In 2024, the city counted over 2,700 homeless people, and more than 1,200 of them were living completely outdoors. That's a really high number for a city this size. It shows just how many people are struggling to survive without a roof, without safety, and often without help. And the truth is, those numbers might still be too low. Many homeless people move around, avoid being counted, or don't show up in official systems. Hospitals and shelters report seeing far more people than the city can keep track of.
Like, you know, babe, like, to be honest, like, I'm not over there killing people. I'm not molesting children. I'm not doing things that would hurt innocent people. You know, Albuquerque is not a bad place. You know what I'm saying? But if you really, really want to help somebody who's in need, like, you know, just bullshit aside, emergency time is now because I could really use the help, right? I'm gonna die.
Most shelters are full almost every night. Some people wait hours for a bed, and many just give up and sleep on the street instead. Transitional housing, the kind that helps people slowly get back on their feet, is very limited. It's really hard to find stability when there's nothing steady to hold on to. This crisis isn't just about housing. It's about health, dignity, and survival. Many of the people living outside are seniors, disabled, or struggling with mental illness. Some used to have jobs and families. Now they're stuck in a system that moves too slow and helps too little. What's happening in Albuquerque isn't just a spike in numbers, it's a slow collapse. One that feels heavier every month. And if things keep going like this, the city may not be able to keep up. The problem is real, it's growing fast, and it's breaking lives every single day.
I lost my house after I had my second baby because I had a spot, you know, I had a spot in a job and everything, but when I had my second baby, he was in the ICU, so like I was working up until I had him, and then my landlord was selling the house I was staying in, and then
Two, how housing issues fuel homelessness in Albuquerque. When discussing the rise of homeless in America, housing affordability consistently plays a central role. In Albuquerque, the link is stark and deeply concerning. With rent climbing and supply dwindling, more residents are being pushed into homelessness per Hastis. It's really serious. As of mid-2025, the median rent for all types of housing in Albuquerque is about $1,299 per month, which is roughly 26% lower than the national average. However, that reduction doesn't lessen the burden for low-income families and individuals. After all, nearly half of renters are considered cost-burdened, meaning they spend over 30% of their income on rent. That's almost unbelievable to think nearly 1 in 2 people struggles just to keep a roof over their head. In addition, rental increases continue to pressure households. Just in the first half of 2024, rent rose by 4% for one-bedroom units and 2.5% for two-bedrooms. So even if Albuquerque is cheaper than some cities, these steady increases really add up, especially when incomes barely change. Moreover, the shortage of affordable housing is significant. New Mexico is estimated to lack about 38,000 rental homes affordable for extremely low-income households. That means so many people are stuck waiting, sometimes indefinitely, for a place they can actually afford. And sadly, while emergency shelters and transitional housing exist, they're often full, leaving individuals and families with nowhere to turn. Consequently, many working people still end up without homes. They hold jobs, but simply can't make ends meet. When someone earns low wages and pays half their paycheck in rent, eviction is almost inevitable. It's heartbreaking, and it's unfair. So the reality is clear. Unless housing supply expands and rent control or more affordable programs are introduced, Albuquerque will continue seeing a rise in homeless in America, and especially within its own borders. The dream of having a stable home is slipping further away for many. Housing issues are not just background noise, they are the heart of this crisis. And until they're addressed, more lives will crumble under their weight. Three, substance abuse and addiction. Has substance abuse become the silent driver behind homelessness in America? In Albuquerque, addiction fuels the crisis and deepens suffering among those without homes. Firstly, many people experiencing homelessness struggle with drugs or alcohol. National data show that roughly 1/3 of homeless individuals face substance use disorders, and 2/3 of those have long histories of drug or alcohol dependency. Locally, the International District, often called the war zone, is heavily affected. Here, fentanyl, methamphetamine, heroin, and cocaine are alarmingly visible in public spaces. Authorities report that about 65% of overdose deaths in New Mexico since 2022 involve fentanyl, a powerful opioid nearly 100 times stronger than morphine. That statistic is chilling. It shows how lethal addiction has become. What drives this level of substance abuse? Often, addiction begins as a survival mechanism. People living on the streets take drugs to numb physical pain, emotional trauma, or mental illness. But instead of relief, it often deepens their hardship, and it becomes very difficult to escape. My personal observation is that addiction here is not a lifestyle choice. It is a tragedy that traps people in cycles of despair and displacement. Considering treatment capacity, Albuquerque has about 800 recovery housing beds across 18 providers. That might sound like a start, but when you compare it to the number of people needing help, it's barely a drop in the ocean. It is heartbreaking to think that hundreds may wait without safe housing or treatment as addiction overwhelms them. How can a society expect someone to find stable housing or a job while surviving on opioids and sleeping in a tent? It's nearly impossible. Addiction impairs decision-making, increases vulnerability to crime, and makes it harder to follow through with any help offered. Yet, there's hope. Evidence shows that once people receive stable housing and treatment options, like Housing First programs, they're far more likely to reduce substance use and rebuild lives. Still, funding and access remain inadequate. Only about 1/3 of New Mexicans with substance use disorders receive treatment services through Medicaid or other programs. That gap is unacceptable. We must clearly say, addiction is not a moral failure. It is a public health issue. And ending the Homeless in America crisis must include compassionate strategies, expansion of recovery, housing, overdose prevention tools like Narcan, integrated mental health care, and concerted public education to reduce stigma. Without addressing addiction, efforts to house people will fall short. In conclusion, addiction in Albuquerque is deeply entangled with homelessness. It's not just about losing a home, it is about losing control over one's life. And unless we treat addiction as part of the solution, homeless in America will remain a haunting reality for too many. It's time to replace shame with support and fear with hope. Four, the job crisis behind the tents. Let's be honest, when we talk about people living on the streets, one question always comes up. Why don't they just get a job? It sounds simple. But in a place like Albuquerque, the answer is anything but. First of all, jobs are not as easy to find as some might think. Sure, there are help wanted signs here and there, but most of those jobs are part-time, pay low wages, and offer zero benefits. Even if someone lands one, it's usually not enough to cover rent, food, and transportation, especially when rent keeps going up every year. Many people assume that if you're able-bodied, you should be working. But what if you don't have an ID? What if you don't have clean clothes or a phone to take a call? What if you're battling mental illness or addiction? These are everyday struggles for people experiencing homelessness, and they make holding a job really, really hard. Then there's the job market itself. Albuquerque has long had one of the highest unemployment rates in the state. A lot of people here work in food service, construction, or seasonal jobs, the kind that disappear fast when the economy slows down. And after the pandemic, let's be real, a lot of those jobs never came back the same way. And even if someone's ready to work, willing to show up, and totally clean, many employers don't want to take the risk of hiring someone who doesn't have a stable address. It's unfair, but that's how the system works right now. There's also this thing no one talks about enough, trauma. When you've been homeless for years, every day is about survival. That kind of stress changes you. It messes with your focus, your sleep, your mood. So how do you clock in at 8 a.m. and smile through a shift when you spent the night freezing in a parking lot? The truth is, this whole situation is bigger than just finding a job. It's about dignity, about trust, about giving people a fair shot. And until we fix the deeper cracks in the system, not just the job boards, we're going to keep seeing more people fall through. So next time someone asks, why don't they work? Maybe we should ask, what are we doing to make work actually possible? Because behind every lazy stereotype is often a story of someone who tried and got turned away. This is yet another layer of the growing crisis of homeless in America, a country where people are willing to work, but the system just doesn't work for them. Five, social welfare and homelessness in Albuquerque. Albuquerque's social safety net for people facing homelessness is both extensive and strained. On one hand, there's a complex web of nonprofits, city agencies, and state programs designed to help. On the other hand, demand consistently outpaces what's available, leaving many without adequate support. Firstly, the city's coordinated entry system is a central platform. It prioritizes individuals based on vulnerability assessments. It uses tools like VISP-DAT to determine who needs help most. In theory, it makes access fairer and faster. However, with around 5,600 households experiencing homelessness annually in Albuquerque, the system can rarely keep up, as many are left on wait lists or shuffled between resources. Health services for the homeless are also well developed. Albuquerque Healthcare for the Homeless operates a dedicated campus with outreach teams offering medical services. Yet, on the night of the 29th of January, 2024, only a bit over half of the unsheltered individuals reported having any form of care. That means the other half face physical and mental health issues with no consistent treatment. In hospitals across the state, from 2019 to 2023, about 30,882 unique individuals experiencing housing instability accessed treatment, an average of 6 visits per person. Clearly, many are seeking help, but often only in crisis, not via ongoing support. Emergency shelters and recovery housing complement public services. Faith-based groups like Joy Junction provide shelter, food, and counseling, serving around 300 people daily. In addition, Albuquerque offers about 800 recovery housing beds via 18 providers. That's useful, but once again overshadowed by the hundreds who need help and the thousands in unstable living conditions. Furthermore, the city has invested more than $10.7 million annually in federal continuum of care funding. These grants go towards emergency shelters, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, and related services. Additionally, a $14 million bond was approved by voters to build new shelter space, showing local willingness to tackle the issue. Despite that, shelter capacity remains outstripped by need, and many nights shelters are full or turning people away. Six, government responses and policies. The city of Albuquerque has made a visible effort to address homelessness through a mix of short-term emergency actions and long-term planning. However, the scale of the crisis continues to challenge even the most well-intended responses. One of the city's most notable actions is the creation of the Albuquerque Community Safety, ACS, department. Instead of sending police to respond to nonviolent calls involving mental health, substance abuse, or homelessness, trained civilian responders are dispatched. This model is both compassionate and practical, reducing the burden on law enforcement and improving outcomes for vulnerable individuals. In terms of shelter infrastructure, the city has approved funding for new facilities, including a large gateway center aimed at providing emergency shelter, medical sobering units, and housing navigation. While promising in scope, this project has faced delays and criticism for being too slow to address immediate need. Meanwhile, shelters throughout the city remain full nearly every night. Albuquerque has also pursued zoning reforms to encourage the development of affordable housing. Through its Housing Forward ABQ initiative, the city aims to add thousands of housing units by simplifying regulations and offering incentives to developers. These efforts are a step in the right direction, but still far from sufficient when compared to the pace at which homelessness is growing. Ultimately, while local leaders recognize the urgency, their efforts are constrained by funding limits, political pressure, and the sheer complexity of the issue. To make a lasting impact, Albuquerque must scale up its approach, prioritize permanent supportive housing, and better coordinate with state and federal programs. Anything less will only keep the city stuck in a cycle of temporary fixes. Seven, how residents are affected by homelessness. Living in Albuquerque, it's hard not to notice how much homelessness has changed the city. Some folks feel sad or helpless when they see people sleeping on sidewalks. Others feel frustrated, especially shop owners or parents worried about safety near schools and parks. Honestly, I get both sides. No one wants to step over tents on their way to work, but no one chooses to live in a tent unless they've run out of options. Still, it creates tension. People are scared of crime, trash, or public drug use. And let's be real, some parts of town feel a lot different than they did a few years ago. But here's the thing, just cleaning it up won't solve it. Moving people from one corner to another doesn't fix anything. If we only look at it as a nuisance, we miss the human story underneath. I believe most people in Albuquerque want to help, but they also want to feel safe. Finding that balance is hard, but if the city doesn't do more to address the root causes, we're all just spinning in circles. Conclusion: homelessness in Albuquerque is not just a policy issue, it is a reflection of deeper struggles within American society. Rising housing costs, untreated addiction, limited mental health support, and underfunded social programs all intersect to create a crisis that no one agency can solve alone. What's happening here is part of a larger picture of homeless in America, and it reminds us how easy it is for people to fall through the cracks. Still, this is not a hopeless situation. With the right mix of compassion, political will, and community action, progress is possible. More permanent housing, expanded health care, and job support can truly change lives. The question now is, do we want to simply manage this crisis, or do we want to end it? The answer will shape the future of Albuquerque and perhaps influence how we address the growing number of homeless in America as a whole.